So the next mantra we have to take up is mantra number 10. Tasmad yajnat sarvahutaha rachas samani jajnire chandagam se jajnire tasmat yajastasmadajayata. We are dealing with the primordial creation of the world. So in the creation of the world, what happens is, first of all, we have to create the field. This we see in our everyday life also. For example, let us say you want to conduct a wedding. So when you have to conduct a wedding, the bride and bridegroom will be the last to come. Because before that, what you do is you set up the altar, and then the seats are all arranged. Somebody will be cooking food or will be delivering, so everything will be getting ready. But all that is happening only for the sake of marriage of the most important people, the bride and groom. So for the bride and groom to come, lot of preparation takes place, isn't it? So similarly, in the creation also, for the creation of man, Ishvara, the Lord, actually creates a whole field. See, this is where all of us, lot of people, human beings, do not realize how much of cosmic preparation has happened for us to take birth. So we actually spend so much time in most insignificant things, morning till evening, probably 90% of the population. What a waste. So if you study the Purusha Sukta, you will know how the Lord is creating the entire field. So when you are looking at what did he do, he subjected himself to yajna. He himself actually dismembered himself so that the world can be created. So this also means that the creator himself or itself, the Brahman itself, will morph into the universe. But that doesn't mean that the whole thing is morphs into universe, because we also saw Atyatishthad Dashangulam. It is an infinite part is not to be seen. Only we see one aspect of the creation of the creator being manifest as the world. So in preparation for the intelligence, we have to create speech. So speech has got to be created, and that speech has got to be perfect speech. That is a speech by which the knowledge is embedded in speech itself. And through speech, knowledge should be communicable from one person to another and from one generation to another. So that codification of knowledge in words and sounds is called Veda. So what was the next thing that came? The next thing that came in the Purusha Sukta is, now let us have the logos. See, this you will see in the Bible also. So the concept of logos. Logos means it is the potentiality of the creation in a sound. And that, here they say, is actually in elsewhere in the Shiva Purana. We get an explanation for this. There is a verse in Shiva Purana which says it is the breath of Ishvara. Yasya nishvasitam vedaha. When he actually exhaled, the entire Veda came out. And then because of the breath of this immense being called Brahman, which was an out breath, yo vedebhyo akhilam jagat. So the breath itself consisted of all the knowledge. And that knowledge, yo vedebhya, by means of that knowledge, akhilam jagat, the entire universe was created. And then to that, what was his agenda? What did he want? He doesn't even require our prayer. We don't have to worship, we don't have to pray. we don't have to do any religious activities whatsoever to get His grace, because His grace is already there. So actually why we should do it is because so we can experience the presence of that grace. It is not that you worship and pray to get grace. Grace is already there. Only thing is we acknowledge that we have been blessed, and secondly we get an inspiration to have Ishvara as a role model, and so that we can bless the creation unconditionally. So every out-breath that we have must be full of knowledge. Yasya nishvasitam vedaha. This is what the primordial creative being wanted us to do. But we have gone far away from that, but that is the human condition. It is not the human nature. It is a human condition. So, that Vidyatirtham Maheshwaram Yasya Nishvasitam Vedaha Yo Vedebhyo Akhilam Jagat Nirmame Tamaham Vande Vidyatirtham Maheshwaram is how the Shiva Purana describes the creation of the Veda. So, therefore the Veda is the repository of prana, is the repository of jnana, and it is the outbreath of this Purusha. So from the Veda all the creation takes place. So why does he do it? He has no selfishness whatsoever. The being has no selfishness whatsoever. The beauty is when you have a certain knowledge, and that knowledge is something that has given you a lot of joy. It is not pride, it is not arrogance, it is not scholarship. It is the very fact that you know that, you have learned it, is giving you joy. And when you have that joy, you cannot help expressing that joy. So, a joyful knowledge expressed is called art. That is why you see grace, beauty and charm and attraction in music or dance or architecture. Because it is grounded in joy, in ananda. That is why the definition of kala in Sanskrit is ananda. This kala means kalayati swaswarupa veshena tat vastu parichinati iti kala vyapara. So there is a definition of what is the process of kala. So this is a very beautiful commentary on the Shiva Sutras. The Shiva Sutras which are part of the Kashmir Shaivism, and a very beautiful set of sutras. The Shiva Sutra Vimarshini is the name, and the author of this definition is called Kshemaraja. Again, this is where it applies here. The creation is creating the universe by means of the knowledge called Veda. And because of that knowledge which has given this immense being joy, that is why Brahman is also defined as Ananda. Satyam Jnanam Anantam, but actually it was used to be Anandam. Anandam became Anantam, because Ananda, which is infinite, is Anantam. So this Kalayati Swaswarupa Veshena. So what is the garb or the attire or the costume of joy, which is none other than the joy of Parabrahman, and that is Veda. Now you can imagine how Veda is the Lord himself. Veda is his decoration. Angikam bhuvanam yasya Vachikam sarvavangmayam aharyam chandrataradi tam namas sattvikam shivam. All that is representing the Veda itself. And this Veda, this Parama Purusha, had to bring out the creation, and for that sake he does yajna. And therefore Purusha Sukta is the Purusha Yajna. Purusha Yajna is done to reveal the Swaswarupa, that means one's own innate nature. So why do we look beautiful? We look beautiful because we are showing our innate nature. Whenever we are not expressing ourselves either in speech or in action against our nature, we will start looking not so beautiful. Isn't it? So because many people misunderstand beauty to be how you look at the skin deep. Beauty is a very, 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 skin beauty is a very subjective beauty. But the real intrinsic beauty, is jnana, and that jnana becoming one's own swarupa, one's own form, then it is really beautiful. Ashtavakra, we have a character called Ashtavakra, who was bent in 8 different parts of his body. Most ugly form, but he was the most beautiful person. It is because when he spoke, the Swaswarupa Darshana was coming up. So this human being had to be designed, because this human being is vested with the responsibility of Ishvara to do his work. That is why we have a sticker in our house. Since God could not be everywhere, he created mom. So since Ishvara cannot be seen, since Brahman cannot be seen by our sense organs, he created the human being. And how are we justifying this vesting of the Ishvara himself as human beings is the message of this mantra. And he is saying that Veda Vak. Therefore, when the Veda speaks, so how does it speak? It speaks in Rig Veda called Rik, then it speaks in Yajur Veda called Yajumshi, it speaks in Sama Veda called Samani, and Rig Veda represents Agni. Rig Veda, that is, we have to see in the form of Adhyatmika, Adibhautika and Adidaivika. In 3 forms we have got to study the mantra. So as far as Adhyatmika is concerned, it is Agni, it is Rik, the poetry. As far as Adidaivika or the deity wise you have to see, it is Agni. If you want to see Adibhautika, that is in the gross form, it is the earth. So similarly, song or Sama is Surya or the sun, Aditya, and it is in heaven, the Suvaha. Then we have Yajus, which is Bhuvaha, and it is Vayu or the wind. So the mapping is Earth, Agni, Rik. The space in between the earth and the sky, that is called Suvaha. That is called Bhuvaha, and the deity is Vayu, and obviously, and the functionality is Yajus, and then Suvaha, the heavens, is Aditya or Surya and Sama. So this is why in all our schemes you will see Agni, Vayu, Aditya being described. For example, in Mantra Pushpa, it is Agni, Vayu, Aditya. Agnir Vayuradityas Chandrama Nakshatra-meti. Do you know where? Agnir Vayuradityas Chandrama Nakshatra-meti. Aruna Prashna. Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. See how they are connected. Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Tatsaviturvarenyam, Varenyam or Varenyam, Surya. So it's all the three again. Bhur Bhuvasuvaha. So this was created, Agni Vayu Aditya. So the original primordial sound, which was still in the potentiality, it wasn't expressing itself either as prose, poetry or song. In pure potentiality is called the Vak. Shatapada Brahmana gives another commentary to this mantra. Sava Esha Vak Tredha Nihita. This speech, that is the unheard speech, the logos, was actually done into three ways. Tredha Nihita. Rucho Yajumshi Samani. And Agni takes the three forms. What is the three forms? Agni as fire, Agni as wind, Agni as the Surya. All the three are forms of Agni. Wind is Agni because in wind there is potentiality of fire. In the sun there is potentiality of fire. In water there is potentiality of fire. So there is nowhere that Agni is not there. And that is why Rigveda also starts, the very first mantra is Agnimi Ile Purohitam. For what purpose? Yajnasya Devam. He is the Yajnasya Deva, he is the god of Yajna. And for what purpose am I worshipping? Sukratum. Yajnasya Deva Sukratum. And then Agnihi, that Agni Tridha Vihitaha, he became three, Yetena hi Trayena Shriyate. And therefore we offer Havis in Yajna. When we breathe, we offer Yajna to Vayu. And then when we do Namaskara, because Surya is fond of Namaskara, when we do Namaskara, we worship Aditya. And that is Ruk Yajus Sama. All this was designed so that the human being can behave like a divine person. That was the purpose. So this jnana that is given to us is for the sake of sharing, is for the sake of dissemination. And therefore this sharing and dissemination is possible from one human being to another human being by means of uttering. Isn't it? You got to utter the word. You got to say the word. That utterance is called as Udgita. So we have a whole set of study called the Udgita Brahmana in the Chandogya Upanishad. So Udgita, we are going to see this Udgita. What do we mean by Udgita? Rigveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda. Samaveda eva ut. Yajurvedo gir. Rigvedaha tham. So Ud means what? It is the loud, sonorous, perfect to the swara chanting of the Veda. That is called Ut. And then Gi or Gir means prose formulations. Technically it is called as Gadya Sutra. All Yajurveda mantras are called Gadya Sutra. So this Gadya Sutra is called Yajus and it is Gir. Tha means it is the Sukta or the well formulated poetry and it is Rigveda. So whenever you use the word Udgita, also it means Chandagam si then Tasmad Yajna Yajnat Sarvahutaha Rajaha Samani Jajnire. So now, having this created this methodology, this discipline, now it has got to go and reach people. So for the sake of reaching people, you have got to have a syntax, a way in which you formulate the words, assembly of the words. And that assembly of the words depends on the assembly of the letters. And the number of letters assembling in a given form is called Chandas. So we have talked about this chandas earlier. So tasmat chandamsi jajnire. From this Ruk Yajus Sama, what the Creator did was, He gave us another tool. He not only gave us the ability to communicate, not only He breathed the Veda into the human personality, He also gave us the method of speaking. By means of saying, you take so many of these letters, you combine, then it will become the Gayatri. 24 letters you combine, it becomes the Gayatri Chandas. You combine 28, you combine, it will become Ushnik. You combine 32, it will become Anushtup. We have studied this earlier. You can go back to the Chandas that I have spoken to find that. Not only these 7 major Chandas are there, there are actually 38 other intermediate Chandasas are there. So total there are 45 identified Chandas that we will come across in the whole of the Vedas. So if you look carefully at the classification of Chandas at the top of each one of these mantras, you will see not just these 7 but some more also. So they're all 45 in number. I can give you a list, but that becomes it doesn't add any much value to that. You can refer to that list. I can send it to you. So tasmat, you can see in this mantra, tasmat has been used 3 times. Tasmat yajnat sarvahutaha. Then rachasamani jajnire chandagamsi jajnire tasmat. Once more. Tasmat Yajas tasmad ajayata. 3 times tasmat is used. How do we understand this? Is it saying that all these 3 different strands came from the same origin? Or they came successively? Actually, they came successively. Tasmat, from this primordial Purusha, who performed the Sarvahut Yajna, that means he himself gave up in his entirety himself, came Rujas Samani, the Ruk Sama came out. Rigveda and Samaveda came out. Tasmat, from that Rigveda and Samaveda, Chandamsi, the meters came. Tasmat, from the meters came Yajas. What is the authority? What is the logic there? Because suppose we say Rug Yajus Sama. Rug Yajus Sama must come from Tasmat, from the original. Then we must get Chandamsi, isn't it? Then the third, we will not be able to parse why the third Tasmat is there. But now you will see, by saying the first Ruk and Sama came, also why Samaveda has only the mantras of Rigveda. 99% of the Samaveda mantras are from Rigveda already set to music. So therefore they are actually one corpus. One is in poetry form, another is in song form. So that was the first way in which the knowledge was breathed. It's because breath is also one after the other. So when the breath came, the first part of the breath was Yajus Sam, Rug Yajus, and then that has to be carried, isn't it? That poetry with song has to be carried. For carrying, there must be movement. For movement, you need a vehicle, and that vehicle is meter, Chandamsi. So therefore, next Chandamsi came. Next came Yajus, because Yajus is Gadya Sutra. What is the use of sutra? The use of sutra is for the sake of doing something with it, isn't it? You have to do Ashtanga Yoga. You have to practice dispassion and dedicated practice, Abhyasa Vairagya Abhyam. For what purpose? For the sake of control of the modifications of the mind. Abhyasa Vairagya Abhyam Tannirodha. So there is Abhyasa Vairagya, conceptual. But Abhyasa Vairagya, the conceptual thing, has got to result into action. That is controlling the modification of the mind. So there must be a movement. And all movement is represented by Yajurveda. The vehicle to move is meter. And so, idea should come first. From the idea, a method should come out, and from the method, action should emanate. This is the genius of our Vedic rishis. So they create the Ruk and Yajus, Ruk and Sama as method, and then Chandas, Ruk and Sama as idea, and Chandas as method, and Yajus as action. We'll continue.